Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Lily Kujero. I'm the Executive Director of Davio Early Childhood Institute. Welcome to Children Want to Communicate webinar 2. We hope that you will be inspired by the sessions in the webinar, and your perspective will change, and also you will be able to take action in your community and wherever you are in terms of creating change, in terms of inclusive communication and providing children opportunities to communicate. So you will wonder why. I'm going to start with why we decided to partner with children.net, which is Constantine and his team from Zurich, Switzerland, because there's a huge, problem in terms of inclusive communication around the world, and also when it comes to how children are able to communicate and how they can develop their language skills and communication skills. We are all a product of poor communication, and for instance, I struggle a lot when it comes to speaking with people and listening. I'm always forced to really kind of jump in once I get an understanding of what they're talking about. And those are all things that we have, really not had a lot of training from the beginning when we were kids. And so we do have those issues. And when we grow up to become adults and we step up, we now take public speaking skills, lessons. We take lessons in, how to communicate in the workplace, how to communicate with people, listening. And these are things that is supposed to be, it's supposed to be taught in the early years, right, when we start education. So there are thousands of young children worldwide now who have poor speech and language development issues. And also there is the lack of inclusive communication between caregivers, educators, parents, and their young children. And this problem affects a lot of children. And in our region, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, where you see that there is poor investment in alternative, programs or services to kind of bridge this gap. We are trying to really work with educators and parents and families and teachers in the preschool level from 0 to 8 years to really understand what is missing in terms of inclusive communication in the early years and how we can help children better develop their communication skills and also develop in terms of language. So the goal is that we want to help shift the perspective of all participants today so that they can all take action in terms of how we all can contribute to creating this change. I really love this quote. It says, presuming that a nonverbal child has nothing to say is like presuming an adult without a car has nowhere to go. And I really love this quote because, when we see children between 0 to, I will say even the full 8 years, we assume that they don't really have much to contribute. They don't have much to say. And so we tell them stuff, we give them instructions. We try to tend to maybe teach them what to do, but we don't give them the opportunity to also contribute and use their own voices. And again, the goal of this webinar or the series of Children Want to Communicate webinars that we want to continue having is to empower teachers, caregivers, and parents to communicate effectively with children. Our goal is to promote inclusive communication, whether at school or at home, and to improve the learning potentials and future outcomes of young learners. We will all agree that education and learning in the early years thrives on language development, inclusive communication, and play. And so without language development, without inclusive communication and play, it's really difficult to really impact anything into children. And these three things come before literacy. But the current educational system that we all see around the world focuses first on literacy. Our goal is to teach children because we believe that, the power of creating change in the world, children can become successful in the future by becoming first literate. But we forget that the basis, for somebody to be able to understand what you teach, for me to be able to, for you to be able to impact me with what you're teaching me, my language skills need to be there. They first need to be developed. There needs to be this rapport where I can communicate to you and you can communicate to me, and then we have to understand each other. And when it comes to young children, if there is no play involved, it also becomes very difficult for them to really even listen to you or to be interested in learning. And also, we must focus early childhood education or early learning on nurturing life skills and also the social skills that children need. And all these, again, fall on language development, inclusive communication, play, and literacy. So, welcome to Children Want to Communicate. This whole problem statement and the goal is just to create an understanding for you to see why we're having the Children Communicate webinar and why we had to partner with Children for Net project in Switzerland, because they have, developed various, work. They've done a lot of projects and developed a lot of programs, videos, in terms of documents when it comes to how children should be encouraged to communicate, how we can improve the communication skills of young children. So they really have done a lot of research and all this. And so partnering with them is also giving us an opportunity to learn from various people, learn from various experts and cultures on how we can all contribute to this. And as Africans, I know there is this growing trend of why not have, programs that focus on the African culture. That is true. But I believe that we are also nurturing children who will be able to take their place in any part of the world that they find themselves in. So we don't want to restrict our programs to just the local content. We want to make sure that teachers and children are able to have different perspectives and also able to learn from different people from various parts of the world. And so Konstantin, Stefan, Katharina from Switzerland, thank you so much for being our guest trainers for the first session. You will be taking us through a lot of your videos and contents, and I will leave you to introduce yourselves and tell us more about your work, and also let's see what you have for Children Want to Communicate Webinar 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lily, for this great introduction. I would like to welcome you very warmly. Our team of Children-4Net is located in Switzerland, in the city of Zurich. Switzerland is a small country in the middle of Europe with around 8.6 million inhabitants and 4 official languages. Since 1 year, we have a very good relationship to the Debut Early Childhood Institute in Ghana. Thank you, Lily, and your team for this very nice, very good collaboration. Today on board from our side are 3 people, which I would like to shortly introduce: Katharina, Stephen, and me. Katharina has directly been on board of the Children-4Net. But since around 1 year, she is working at the Zurich University of Teacher Education, the leading national university providing services to education. Stephen is the acting project representative of Children-4Net. He is working at the Ministry of Education in our division of educational planning. The division of educational planning is a kind of public think tank, providing the government with data, analytics, and prognostics, and in special cases with projects for tomorrow, like the project Children-4Net. My name is Konstantin, and I am the head of this division and CSO. I'm also a member of the strategy group of the Swiss UNESCO Commission Early Childhood Education and Care. And please give me 2 or 3 minutes to focus on the situation in Switzerland. I would like to take the opportunity to say some words to the situation in Switzerland. Education in Switzerland means more than 95% of all is funded through public money. There is a very small private educational sector. The educational system on the state level is starting with primary education after a child has completed his or her 4th birthday. The mandatory school time is 11 years. Around 80% continue in vocational education and training. Around 20% attend the baccalaureate schools. Between birth and 4, families are responsible. But families are supported by ECE, by the ECE system, financed partly by local authorities. The educational system has a great flexibility to your personal goals. No matter from where you start, all paths should be connected. But of course, you have to reach certain levels. What guiding principles of educating a child do we have in Switzerland? We have at least 4. First, children are competent masters of their own learning. Second, children develop and learn when they play. Play has an important role in Switzerland. Third, everyday situations are most welcome and most wonderful opportunities to learn. And fourth, talk to your child. Early language acquisition matters. What about the families? I already mentioned families are responsible educating their children, but they are supported through the ECE system. There is as well the social working branch working with poorer or stressed families. We are running wide projects like Doing Family to help and to inspire families. As well, our own project, Children-4, is a project to inspire families and to inspire ECE professionals in their daily work. For this, we produced a free resource library of 71 video clips of early childhood education. Behind the program, behind the video project, we funded a heavy research program to get real good concepts. Our concepts are related to the Reggio Emilia and the Montessori approach. We have 2 areas, day-to-day situations and early language acquisition. The video clips are in HD quality, lasting 2 to 3 minutes, and they are available in 13 languages. Thank you very much for your attention about the situation in Switzerland. And Lily, let me pass over to Katharina. Katharina will give us all a very good and I hope very helpful insight into the project concerning early language acquisition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Konstantin. That is very great. And I think that everybody is really excited about all the information just shared with us, your project and everything. So Katharina, please go ahead, and we're looking forward to a great session with you as well.
Thank you very much, Lily. Thank you very much, Konstantin. Very warm welcome from my side as well. And I just share with you my presentation. I'm very glad or very thankful that we can present here our approach on early language acquisition. And we really believe that educational processes in early childhood always occur in concrete and everyday situations. Because children do not learn as we do in a cognitive manner. They learn through all their senses. They learn by listening, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. They learn through the experience, and it's very important for them that they can experience things they learn as well. And they also memorize things they learned emotionally. So it's on different levels that children are actually learning. And for that reason, it's very important that when we work with children, that we open our eyes to the world as children see it. Children are very, very curious, and they learn more than in any other later stage of their lives up to 4. And it's very important that we actually take chance of all the opportunities which are there in everyday situations, so that children can discover new things. As parents and caretakers, we are actually forced, or we actually have to be or work with the children and be with the children in a very attentive manner. And our support is very crucial to them in their very important phase of their life when they're young. Early language acquisition needs to be embedded into daily life. Because language for us is not a matter or a subject that has to be taught, but it's a means of communication. And children need this means of communication because they want to belong. They want to belong to us, our families, our communities, our society. And they need the language to put forward their needs and interests. It's very important that they can do, first of all, to survive, and secondly, also to adopt skills they need later for their professional life or even for their school life. Language actually for children is just one instrument in the orchestra of all means of expression, but it's a very important one, especially when it comes to school, to higher education, or to their professional life. It's very important to see also that children learn in an informal manner. They learn when they play, or they just do it casually. So it's very important for children that we as adults, as caretakers or parents, that we play a kind of model role to them, because what they see and what they hear from us, they copy, they memorize, and they reproduce. So our role is very important when we support children, when we guide children, when we lead children to the point where they actually do the early language acquisition. To be more explicit, I like to show you the first video clip which we produced. It's about a snail. It's a caretaker and a little child, 2 years old and 10 months. And it shows very beautifully how the caretaker actually gets involved into the interaction with the child, and how she gets down, or how she actually gets onto the level of the child of attention and learning and interaction. It's very beautiful. The snail may appear to you a little bit awkward, maybe, but in Switzerland, the snail is an animal that is very symbolic also to this age up to 4, because the snail is small, the snail is slow. There are so many children books on snails, and it's harmless. It doesn't cause any harm to us when we touch it. And the snail immediately reacts with his antennas when it gets touched. And we talked about the children learn with all their senses. And when you put the snail on the hand of a child, it can feel this very slimy little track on its hand, but nothing happens, especially that maybe the child is taken by surprise when the snail takes back his antenna. And to show you the movie, I get quickly on the internet site, which we have, and where you can find all the movies as well. The website, access to the website and the download of all the materials is free. And here, when you get on the bottom language, you can choose the language and you can access the video clips we produced. You can go to the filter and just select what you like to have.
It's good weather for snails today. That makes today's outing especially interesting. What are these little animals? What do they do if they're afraid?
Wo wollen wir ihn hin tun, Serena? Schau, vielleicht kommt er dann wieder raus, wenn wir ihn nachher, soll nicht nur auf der Hand lassen. Vielleicht kommt er dann nachher später wieder raus. Schau, jetzt kommt er raus.
What happens if you touch them? What does the shell feel like?
Die Hand fort.
What does the slimy body feel like?
Aber er hat ein bisschen Angst gehabt, weisst du. Muss zuerst schauen, wo er jetzt ist. Das ist nicht das Gleiche wie die Holzwand. Ja, sicher. Willst du einmal auf die Hand nehmen? Nein.
Selina's childminder is not afraid of touching snails. She skillfully draws Selina's attention to this and that and encourages Selina to touch the snail herself.
Ups, jetzt ist er gerade wieder ein bisschen verschrocken.
Ja, von mir.
Ja, wegen dir, genau, wegen deinem Finger. Hey, schau, der geht ganz geschwind fort jetzt. Hä? Wo kann ich eigentlich runter?
What about those feelers? Does the snail like the leaf? This is nature study for beginners.
Ja, jetzt.
Jetzt hat er gerade die Fühler eingezogen. Schau, hat den Rand gespürt vom Blättchen. Und dann geht er drauf.
Selina is fascinated. Perhaps next time she will dare to hold the snail in her hand too and experience what it feels like when the snail is slimy and crawls across her hand.
Da am Boden.
Shared interest is double interest. It stimulates children to become aware of their observations and thoughts and to talk about them. This aids their language development.
I think this movie or this little video clip actually shows very nicely how the caretaker really tries to share the interest with the little child, with this Selina, and she gets on her level. She looks through the glasses, or she gets the sight or the view of the child, and she really gets into the situation and involves and interacts with the child. And the child also becomes very aware of his observation, and the caretaker actually really encourages the child to talk about thoughts and observations. And this is a very beautiful moment. And I think this is what we understand of opportunity in our daily life, everyday situation where we can talk and communicate with the children. And it's very important also that the elder person first actually is formulating or expressing what she thinks and what she observes. So the little one actually can copy and can talk after her and can actually reproduce the words she heard and can actually even share her own thoughts. And this is very, very beautiful. And I think this is also how we work with professionals or lay people or parents when we actually encourage them and empower them to go into language acquisition with children up to 4. So it's very beautiful how this moment actually is. It's a very slow moment. It's a very small moment, but the intensity and the quality of the moment is so good that the child will remember this moment for a long, long time and will take with it the words actually she learned in this moment. And what is also sweet actually, and to see in this sequence, is that the childminder actually also is learning something. She is so much involved into the interaction that they actually go together a step further and share this moment and learn something more about snails at this particular moment. Language acquisition is actually a very complex issue. And therefore, we actually defined 6 guidelines which help us to implement language acquisition at the grassroots level, I say, or in families, or when we work with experts or professionals. First of all, for us, it's very important that we actually identify and utilize everyday opportunities for conversation. We are aware that sometimes stressed families, stressed parents, they do not have the patience or the energy and the resources to actually get fully involved with the child. Or when there are more children, then it's a larger family with the children, you know. And still there are so many moments, even a small conversation, a small dialogue is possible. Introduced or started just with one question, or just by listening a little bit to the child, and encouraging the child to talk more or to express more. For the child, it's very important, and especially if we are able to create a positive atmosphere within which the child can express itself, it learns even more, and the dialogue and the language acquisition is even more successful. The second guideline is facilitating conversation between children. Children learn very much from each other. It's the peer group learning that is always proclaimed and is provided. And this is very important because children among each other, they develop language further, or they bring in what they've learned at home, and then it gets a mix and the situation develops. For us, it's also very important the quality of interaction. If we say, do this, do that, bring me this, bring me that, and no, this is not allowed, this we can't do. This is talking to each other, but it's not a dialogue, it's not a communication, and it's not the quality of interaction. Of course, all these directives are needed too, and of course, they are very much part of our daily life. But if we want to support the child in the early language acquisition, we also have to give space for own ideas and expressions, and give space to the child to express what it feels and thinks, or what it observed. And therefore, the quality of interaction is very important. Then use language in many different ways also means that sometimes we have an object, but various terms to name it, or to express it, or to use it in conversation. So we should be we should use language in many different ways, so that the vocabulary of the child gets more and more engrossed with every day, or with every stage of its development. Early literacy is also very important. It needn't be a children's book, or children's book, or a movie. It can be also a poem, it can be a song, it can be a story which we heard long back, or when we tell children things that happened, and so on. And as Constantine mentioned, for us, multilingualism is very important. And you also mentioned it, Lily. There's so many countries where there is more than one language, and there is migration and all that. So we actually support families to talk and to bring up the children in their mother tongues, or in the strongest language they actually speak at home. And then, because children pick up languages so easily, so that children actually get a set of more than one language when they are children, as part of the early language acquisition. Because our focus today is on children want to communicate, I would like to put the focus on the first 3 guidelines. The first one is identify and utilize everyday opportunities for conversation. And for that to visualize it a little bit better, I would like to get into the second movie, which is an example which is very common. And I think it's also very, very universal, because it's about shopping. A mother that actually shops and go and buy things with 2 little girls.
Bum, bum, bum.
Danke.
Today, Ines is going shopping with her mother. Her friend Ellie is going with them too. There's a lot to talk about during a shopping trip. Without speech, many things remain unclear.
Was hast du noch gesagt? Zeig mal, welche. Wow, so, was sind das? Weißt du das? Was ist das?
Die haben einen Stein drin.
Ein Stein drin.
Mega fein.
Und wie schmecken sie?
Nach alle Sachen.
Nach allen Sachen? Salzig und süß und bitter und sauer. Alles zusammen. Willst du ein paar einpacken?
What does the delicious fruit that Ellie discovered taste like? The mother is listening. She shows interest in what Ellie and Ines say.
Ah, du meinst Aprikosen?
Ja.
Ah, also du von denen ein paar einpacken.
Ja.
She responds attentively to them, asks questions and provides an explanation.
Kannst du Melonen nehmen?
Das schmeckt nämlich gut. Au! Weil die nicht das Fenster weggehen.
Hoppala.
Eins da und...
Sie geht eben immer runter, wenn sie da ist. Soll ich noch mal probieren?
So, wir haben alle die ganze voll.
Super. Danke. Oh, jetzt musst du eine Zahl mir sagen. Was muss ich drücken? Da, schau. Was ist das da?
Weiß ich nicht.
Weißt du nicht? Das ist ein 2 und das ist ein 7. Schau, jetzt kannst du drücken.
What number does she need to key in to print the correct label? And does the watermelon also have to go on the scales? Everything has to be explained and discussed. There's so much language during an ordinary shopping trip.
Oh, warte mal, musst fester, das hat irgendwie nicht. Jetzt ist gut. Super. Und jetzt musst du noch die grosse Tasche, da kommt der Zettel.
By doing so, the girls' vocabulary increases incidentally.
Oh, die packen. Hier ist eben pro Stück, die muss man gar nicht wägen. Das ist noch gäbig. So.
Whether it is at the table, during a walk or shopping, children want to interact with their caregivers everywhere. Let's make the most of this opportunity. Adults support children's language development when they name things and explain them, ask further questions, and discuss new aspects.
I think this is also a beautiful moment to see. The children learn more about what they're doing, about things they buy. They learn how to press the keys so that the label gets out. But they're also experiencing things with different senses. They listen to the mother, but they also get the sticky stuff on the label, which they put later on the bag. They feel the car in which they actually go and put the things in. And there's so many things. There are smells in the air. So the whole thing is an experience and it's almost an event. And it's just a daily situation. And I think these are the moments where parents actually can get involved with the child and talk to it and communicate with it and also ask questions. The mother does that very nicely in this movie. She asks question back. She wants to know which fruit the girl means. So that is very important. Also ask questions when it comes to early language acquisition. We as parents or caretakers, we do not know everything and we don't have to, but we can actually ask children what they mean if you don't understand it properly or not immediately. And children love actually to explain because then they also feel important. And if they have to explain something, they need to express. That means they have to actually collect all the vocabulary which they think is important or at the right place to explain. And this is a very good exercise for the child as well. What I find is very beautiful in this movie as well, that the caregiver actually shows interest in what the child is doing and what the child is thinking, telling, observing, and exploring. And I think this interest, this shared interest, and this given maybe not even non-verbal feedback is encouraging the child to do so, because the mother gives the space and she has the patience to listen and to let the child explain. Guideline 2 is a very beautiful moment too, because facilitate conversations between children. And with the next example, we actually see that what the child experienced in the shop or on the market by going shopping with the mother or someone else in the family, they reproduce it in the play. Actually, when they do pretended play, they actually reproduce situations they experience in everyday situation. And this is actually what the next movie shows.
Mira and Nico are aware that you need to consider size and price when you're buying clothes. The two children role-play their daily experiences. Their roles are clear. Mira is the salesperson, Nico is the customer. Naturally, Nico, who is 2 years younger, is not quite as articulate as his older sister. However, due to their close relationship, her little brother is able to play along and participate without difficulty.
Wer ist zwei? Mammut. Wer? Mammut. Ich weiß nicht, wer der Mammut ist. Weißt im Laden weiß man nicht, wer sie sind.
Mammus. Mammus? Mira is aware that salespeople do not know their customers' friends. She cleverly switches roles in the game from the fictive salesperson to the real-life older sister and explains this to Nico. What a linguistic accomplishment, and quite incidental to the game. Their mother has been watching her children's game. She stays in the background until she can also buy something shortly before the shop closes.
Nein, einmal können sie schon noch.
Kann ich noch?
So, jetzt.
Ja, grüezi.
Children learn a lot from and with each other, also in linguistic terms. When they are together, they want to negotiate their roles, develop their ideas, and define topics. What a valuable learning opportunity.
This movie shows very nicely how the children interact and actually how they reproduce what they learned from their parents and what they learned in everyday situation. What is also very beautifully seen is that the children have lots of space and emotional space, especially. They feel safe, they feel secure, they have sufficient time to get into their play, in their role play, and they have some stimulating materials, very common materials like clothes and maybe some play gadgets. But with all these little things, they create a wonderful market store and actually play what they've seen in their daily life. For children, it's very important that they can reproduce, because by reproducing, they manifesting, they anchoring language as well as other skills. And in the play, they learn a lot. They learn to negotiate, they learn to interact, they learn how to speak when they're behind the market stall and not come as a buyer. They learn from their peers, they learn from each other, as the younger boy learns actually from his elder sister. And guideline number 3, assure the quality of interaction. The quality of interaction is such an important thing, because we talked about that children learn with their senses and they actually adopt things also emotionally. So if they can actually memorize something they learned and associate it with a positive emotion, they learn it forever. It's kind of sustainable learning, and it's very important. So if we guarantee the quality of interaction when we talk to children, when we get into this early language acquisition, the learning is very, very successful. And for this third and last guideline, which I want to show you today, I also like to show you a movie.
Jetzt dahinter ziehen. heben, den Pfeil musst du heben. Ja, hinterher ziehen, ganz fest hinterher ziehen. Oh nein, den Pfeil musst du heben.
Father and son have made a bow and arrow together.
Vorne nicht.
Mauro wants to know how to shoot the arrow from the bow.
Vorne musst du so heben.
Which way is the bow pointing?
Zeigefinger so.
How do you hold it? Which finger goes where?
Genau, das musst du da
And how long does the arrow have to be?
drücken. So da rüber. So, genau. Und jetzt den Pfeil heben, hinterher ziehen. Der Pfeil ist zu lang.
Mauro's father knows how to do it. He gives his just 4-year-old son his support. Calmly, he explains how the bow works.
So. Und jetzt musst du da den Pfeil heben. Fast.
Almost. An encouraging word. It makes Mauro want to try again. Again. Handling the arrow correctly is a fine motor skills challenge.
Da. Nein, schön in die Mitte. Da. Jetzt kannst du noch drauflegen. Und da musst du jetzt den Pfeil mit einer Hand oben und mit einem Finger oben und einem Finger unten heben. So, lass schnell los. Lass schnell los da. Lass schnell los. So. So. Unten Finger und oben mit dem Daumen. Und jetzt den Pfeil so hinterher ziehen. Dass er da eingespannt ist. Genau. Dann loslassen. Ja! Ist er recht geflogen?
Mauro did it! Great! He has to do that again, and he wants his mother to see it.
Nein, lass mal los. So, den Finger unten und mit dem Daumen oben. Genau so.
Mama!
Jetzt hier. Vielleicht noch ein weicher machen.
That doesn't matter. If it flew once, it will fly a second, third, and fourth time. All the more so because Mauro now knows how to do it. His papa showed him how, after all.
Du musst aber die Finger rausheben. Oder so. Oder so, genau. Und jetzt den Pfeil heben. Genau, hinterher ziehen. Vorne nicht heben, vorne nicht heben. Ja, genau. Aber schon so abstützen. So, auf den Finger abstützen. So. Gut, ziehen. Loslassen. Spicken lassen musst du. Den spicken lassen. Ja!
Mami! Es ist ein Zwiebelstachel.
And his mother and his sisters see how far Mauro's arrow flew this time.
Genuine interest and the right measure of instruction and incentive from adults make children successful learners.
This is our last example on early language acquisition. Children want to communicate. But I also think even this example is a very beautiful one. Because the father and the son, they spend a moment of togetherness in the wood. It's actually the entire family spends a moment in the wood, an afternoon maybe, and they're together making bow and arrow. And the father explains the son how to handle this bow and arrow. And when he explains, the father is using actually words the son understands. So it's very important in early language acquisition that we use a language and that we use words the child, according to his development and his age, understands. And the father actually supports his explanation also through gestures and touches, which actually helps the boy to understand even more, because the father actually acquires also, or actually gives an input on other senses of the boy as well, not only to the ears, but also to the body. And that makes it even easier for the young man to understand it. The positive feedback of the mother, oh, that was cool, great. That is also something that encourages the boy to speak more, to express more, to feel free and safe and secure when he is expressing himself, verbally or non-verbally. I think this is a very good example to see how quality of interaction plays a major role when children acquire language. And the positive feedback, the encouragement, the empowerment of a child is very important. And again, early language acquisition has to take place in everyday situation. And we as adults, as parents or caretaker or caregivers, we actually we play a very important role when the child acquires its language. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katharina. That is such a wonderful presentation. I have learned a lot, and I believe everyone has as well. Thank you once again. I will go on to the next, section where I get to also show us like a video. It's an animated video. Be a little bit different from your video because in yours you're able to show like what we can do and the positive interaction, but I would also show the animated video where there's a little bit of what a teacher does wrong and how this can be done better. And so I'll go on to share my screen.
Welcome to Devio Early Childhood Institute.
Brian is in the classroom playing. He tries to reach for a book on the bookshelf and splash, all the books drop from the shelf. The classroom is now piled with books and teacher errors. Brian is confused.
Hey Brian, what happened to the books on the shelf?
There's no inclusive communication expressed here.
Go out and face the wall.
What do you think? The teacher should have done better in using this opportunity to create an avenue for communication and to impact new skills into her student?
The shelf is broken? Brian, my dear, I am sorry for not finding out what happened first. Please, join me to fix the shelf. The shelf is weak and that's why the books dropped.
I was trying to grab a book to read instead of going to play, but when I held the shelf, everything suddenly fell apart and that's when you saw me.
All children want to communicate. Let's give them the opportunity and seize every moment in helping them use their own voices and feel understood.
So the video I just shared is just to give you a perspective of what the normal classroom, is like and how teachers really do not encourage inclusive communication and then this maybe not just the Ghanaian community, but this is something that happens every day in our classrooms or even in our homes. We are first focused on giving instructions and punishing children instead of finding out what happened first and trying to teach them new skills and encourage communication in the process. So it's very important. You will see from this video, the teacher realized afterward that the child did not actually, put the books on the ground or on the floor, but actually there was a problem with the shelf. And so if she had actually taken the steps to find out what happened first, communicated, and tried to understand the child, she would have not even had that interaction where she had to punish the child for the child to feel that my teacher does not understand what happens or does not encourage inclusive communication where I can also share my views or perspective on a situation. And this is very important that as teachers and as caregivers and parents, we should always look at when it comes to situations with young children, how is this situation, whether good or bad, an opportunity for us to impact new skills and also like a teachable moment, or also to encourage communication.